We made some major progress.
I'm still mad.
And
Good evening. Welcome to the Oregon City Council Committee of the Whole meeting for August 7th, 2023, and the time now is 7:02. And we will begin this meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Since council members are not required to be at a committee of the whole meeting, we will not be taking a roll call of who is here and who is not. And we will begin the meeting with considering items for consideration. And the first item is item 105, 2023, which is presented by Mayor Michael Safarian and Public Service Director Paul Roman. Mr. Roman.
Thank you, Mr. President. And the item 105 and 106 are very similar. Both are sets of water line easements. Item 105 is with one property owner. It actually are easements for two separate projects. One project is a loop line that we're installing currently from Navarre up to Parkside Drive and Park Place Drive. It's to loop that neighborhood to Navarre. The other easement is just at the southwest corner of the property, and it's just needed for the Wynn Road water line. But the description of the easements and the values that we negotiated are listed in that table. And item 106, if you don't mind, if I could present.
No, you go right ahead, Mr. Roman.
So in item 106 then is 5 separate easements needed for the much larger project, which is the Seaman, Wynn, and Norden Road water line replacement project. And again, those property are described, the easements are described, as well as the locations and the negotiated value. Pretty much all of these easements, just so you know, we always use a fair market value. We use $35,000 an acre as a fair market value, which is typical for residential. We actually used it for the commercial property as well at Navarre and Wynn. And then you take 50% of that fair market value is usually your cost for an easement. Some people maybe wanted, stone for a driveway or removal of a tree. We sometimes throw those barters into the project and we have them. It's just small things like that make it happen. So, but I'm happy to answer any questions on either ordinance. So.
Thank you, Mr. Roman. Council, any questions or comments on item 105 or 106?
Mr. President.
Mr. Wallenczak.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Roman, when do we plan on doing these projects?
Okay, so currently the loop line is actually being installed by our water distribution department. So they've already started that work. If council recalls, you granted an easement agreement with Kenny Romstad that got that project started. But the other much larger project, we are planning to bid at the end of August, probably with the bid opening in September. And then we'll have a loan signing with the EPA, likely September. So it'll likely start in October. So.
Okay, and what would be the duration of the
A
project?
good year. It'll be a year and a couple months. It'll probably take you to the end of 24. It's
okay.
$3.5 million project. So.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Wallenczak. Council, any other questions or comments regarding item 105 or 106? Hearing none, I will seek a motion to add item 105, 2023 to next week's regular meeting agenda.
So moved, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Davish. Second by Ms. Pauloff. Thank you, Ms. Pauloff. Council, are there any objections? Hearing none, item 105, 2023 will be added to next week's regular meeting agenda. I will seek a motion for item 106, 2023 to be added to next week's agenda.
So moved, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Davish. Second by Ms. Pauloff. Thank you, Ms. Pauloff. Council, any objections? Hearing no objections, item 106, 2023 will be added to next week's regular meeting agenda. Item 107, 2023, also presented by Mayor Michael J. Safarian and Public Service Director Paul Roman. I will defer to Mr. Roman.
Thank you, Mr. President. This ordinance is needed to submit a grant application to TMCOG for the Oregon Trail Bikeway Phase 5 project. We do have a map in the Exhibit A which shows the alignment, but this project we've discussed in budget. It is actually in our budget for this year to construct. We were planning to use TIF revenue to as a part of our loan for the Oregon Town Center to pay for this project. However, if grant money is available, which it is through what's called the Transportation Enhancement Program or Alternatives Program with TMACOG, we thought, why not try to get a grant first? So we're asking for 400,000, and the draft application is in Exhibit A. Trying to think here, you know, the entire project's about a mile long. It starts out at the light at Walmart, crosses Dairy Depot, heads on a paper street along the east side of Schmidlin, and then takes Dustin all the way to Oregon Town Center. And if, you know, this goes through and we already have a bike path already in place within Oregon Town Center with the road that we just constructed, the thought is that that can get extended further south to Northwood. And that'd be a future project, which we would, again, try to get similar grant money for that as well, and probably partner with Northwood as well. So, but anyways, happy to answer any questions on it.
Thank you, Mr. Roman. Just a question, for we do have a path that runs from Navarre to Pickle right now, right there. So this is going to be just to the west of that.
Yes, that's correct.
I mean,
Yeah, and we're, and just so you know, Mr. President.
the question was going to be though, would there be consideration of connecting that one path, you know, east and west to the new path you want to put in?
Yeah, two considerations, and I guess, sorry to cut you off. We do want to plan something down Brown, but I also think that path could go to what's called Trails End Park in Northwood, which would be a nice connection. And with the idea of the Oregon Town Center bike path going south, where it could possibly go through Menards to Lemoyne, that would connect to the Enclave, and then the Enclave would get connected in Northwood to Trails End Park. And then that would come north to this connection. So you'd have one big loop through Northwood to Oregon. It'd be a nice southern loop connection. And so we've talked about that quite a bit. And Northwood is on board, and we've done this joint study. We're going to use that study now for grant applications. And we do mention it in here that we're looking at that will probably help us score this project. And they'll do the same. You know, again, the projects that are within each other city, that's going to be 100% in that city. But perhaps when we even connect the two to Lemoyne, maybe there's a joint effort there, and we do a separate agreement for that. But yeah, I think that path that you mentioned, Mr. Zale, to me would be best to connect to that Trails End someday. And they're aware of that. We're looking for ways of connecting that.
Thank you, Mr. Roman. Thank you. Mr. Wallenczak.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Roman, in the exhibit that you had spoken about with the map, there are some areas on Dustin Road just past Coy that are, I guess, absent or not included in the bike path, that where the city had given up the paper street on Dustin Road, or why is that not a one continuous?
Yeah, well, see, so Athens and Dustin is a paved road in that section, and bike, the traffic is extremely low. It's at two dead ends, you know, to that. So they'll just use that road through there, but we'll still keep Dustin disconnected from Coy. It'll just be the path going through there. So yeah, so when you see somewhat of a disconnect there, that is actually, Dustin is actually paved at Athens, so that they're just using the road. There will be a path though, all the way to Coy, just so you know.
Okay, because there's that traffic light there, and then the road does not go through.
Yeah, that connects.
We had vacated that.
That's correct.
Portion of
Yeah,
Dustin.
it'll still be, we'll have an asphalt path there though.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Wallenczak. Thank you, Mr. Roman. Council, any other questions or comments regarding item 107? Hearing none, I'll seek a motion to add item 107, 2023 to next week's meeting agenda.
Mr. President,
Mr. Reeves?
so moved.
Thank you, Mr. Reeves.
Second.
Second by Mr. Davish. Council, any objections? Hearing no objections, item 107, 2023 will be added to next week's regular meeting agenda. Next item for discussion is item 108, 2023, presented by Mayor Michael Safarian and Fire Chief Clayton O'Brien. And Chief O'Brien, give us some insight on it.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is for the acceptance of the BWC Safety Intervention Grant.
So in our efforts to ensure that all of our primary medic units have this CPR compression device, which we call the Lucas 3.0, is the BWC has recognized the ability to maybe stop injuries of providers through the use of these types of units. Each unit runs about 16,000, just a little over. They awarded us $40,000, which is the max amount that you can get through this grant. The total amount that was spent was about 58,000. And so we do, our coverage or our portion is about 18,983.24.
Thank you, Chief. Congratulations. That's a good grant.
Yeah, kudos to
Money.
Assistant Chief Mark Mullins. I mean, he did all the work on this, so that's definitely great for our organization.
Thank you, Chief Mullins. Council, any questions or comments regarding item 108?
Mr. President,
Mr. Reeves?
thank you. Chief and Assistant Chief, what exactly does this device do? I mean, I know we talked about it a little bit earlier, but could you explain, how it works? And I know maybe next week, if we could see what it looks like and this, that, and the other.
Sure. Yeah, next week we can bring it for a presentation to quickly show everybody actually how the unit works. But essentially, if you just visualize the unit, it would be a unit that comes over the top of the body, has like a plunger-like system that is automatically ran by a battery. So as we pull the plunger down, set it on the chest, hit two buttons, and we can set it to whatever the rate is, it's automatically going to go to the depth because it judges it by the time that it's set. So the effectiveness of CPR is at 2 inches in depth at least 100 times a minute. And so then it'll automatically do that. And you can sit these patients up and it'll do it this way. They'll do it while they're laying down. So as we're moving them from tight locations within their houses or anywhere that we need to move that patient from, continuous CPR can happen at all times with this device.
Thank you. And I look forward to seeing the presentation next week.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Reeves. Thank you, Chief.
Yep.
Council, any other questions or comments? Hearing none, I'll seek a motion to add item 108, 2023 to next week's regular meeting agenda.
Mr. President,
Ms. Paula?
so moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Second by Mr. Davish. Thank you, Mr. Davish. Council, any objections? Hearing none, item 108, 2023 will be added to next week's regular meeting agenda. The last item for discussion is item 109, 2023, presented by Mayor Michael Safarian and Police Chief Brandon Began. And I will defer to Chief Began on this one.
Thank you, Mr. President. This ordinance is seeking approval to accept a grant for the 2023-2024 school year for drug use prevention. This is for our officers who work in the schools to teach drug use prevention, bullying, anti-bullying, anti-violence within the schools. If you look in the exhibit, it does not have a total of what the grant will be awarded. They have not given this to us yet. We've been on the phone for the last week, sending emails, and nobody's responded as to what we actually have been awarded, but we think it's going to be between $5,000 and $6,000 to cover the cost of preparing materials and all that to teach this program, which is called the LEAD program. Very similar to DARE, if you're familiar with that.
That's pretty much what we got last year, is it not? That total?
Correct, yeah, we had just,
Yeah.
yes, just under 6,000 last year. We expect about the same, but they have not given us a final number. And we have to accept the grant by September 15th. So we wanted to bring it forward, and we're hoping by the regular council meeting, they'll give us an exact dollar amount that we'd be accepting.
Thank you, Chief. Council, any questions or comments regarding item 108 or 109? Hearing none, I will seek a motion to add item 109, 2023 to next week's regular meeting agenda.
Mr. President,
Ms. Paula?
so moved.
Thank you, Ms. Paula.
Second.
Second by Mr. Davish. Thank you, Mr. Davish. Council, any objections? Hearing none, item 109, 2023 will be moved to next week's regular meeting agenda. And with that, we will now move to the mayor's report.
Thank you, Mr. President, but I have no report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ms. Pepora?
No report, Mr. President.
Thank you, Ms. Pepora. Mr. Roman?
No report.
Thank you, Mr. Roman. Mr. Reeves.
No report, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Reeves. Mr. Wallenczak.
No report this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Wallenczak. Mr. Davish.
No report, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Davish. Ms. Paula.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Oh, I knew it.
What did you
Thought
say?
you were gonna have a clean sweep, didn't you?
Sorry, no. If it works with everybody, I would like to have a safety meeting next week at 6 o'clock. It's in regards to updating and changing the job description of firefighter 2 paramedic. Was gonna do it on the 28th, but it's something clear cut. The chief will explain it all at the safety meeting. So if it works for everyone else, I know it's short notice for a week, but if it works, we can set that for next Monday, the 14th at 6 o'clock.
Okay.
Anyone have
else?
any objections to that?
Anything else?
Hmm?
Anything else?
No, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Horniak.
No report, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Horniak. And I also have no report. Is there anybody no one signed up? Does anybody in the audience have anything to say? Hearing none, I will seek a motion to adjourn.
Mr. President,
Mr. Reeves.
so moved.
Thank you, Mr. Reeves.
Second.
Second by Mr. Davish. Thank you, Mr. Davish. Any objections, council? This meeting is adjourned.